If you don't agree that Ken from the B movie had every right to become the villain, then the bald god Pitbull will come down on you.
Like the hammer of Thor, the thunder of
his
vengeance will echo through these corridors like the gust of 1,000 winds!
Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the B movie, which if you are, by the way, like, you should 100% watch it. It is one of the greatest cinematic masterpieces of all time. The movie was released by DreamWorks in 2007 and stars Renee Zellweger, Joe Swanson, and of course, Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld was also famously very involved with the creative process of this movie, so we have him to thank for this absolute godsend of a movie. Now, for those of you who maybe don't remember the B movie as much as you should because it's an absolute iconic piece of media, I'm going to do a brief overview of the movie just for some context for the rest of the video. So the movie follows the main character Barry B. Benson as he wants to venture into the real world as he's scared of being stuck in his boring life in the hive. He manages to leave his hive and meets Vanessa, who becomes his homie. So Barry and Vanessa begin to spend a lot more time together, developing their weird friendship, which understandably upsets her boyfriend Ken. However, Barry's world is completely turned upside down when he finds out that humans are stealing the honey from the bees for their own selfish satisfaction and their own selfish gain. Barry decides to sue the human race as a result of this and wins, which leads to the bees not working anymore. However, Barry soon learns that the world and society needs bees in order to function properly, and so Barry has a change of heart and with the help of Vanessa brings the last of the flowers back to his bee homies and they get back to work pollinating the land. Therefore, the movie highlights the importance of bees and of course, Jerry Seinfeld. When I was a kid and I laid my eyes upon this godsend of a movie for the first time, I hated Ken with an absolute passion. I couldn't understand why he was so rude to my guy Barry B. Benson. Barry was such a fun-loving and caring guy. He made real change to the hive as well as to the rest of the world. Now, I believe that Barry's achievements shouldn't be discarded. However, as I have grown and matured, I've changed my perspective regarding Ken specifically a lot. I believe that Ken had every right to be pissed off at Barry. This bastard bee violated my guy for absolutely no reason. Ken did absolutely nothing wrong and Barry just decided to ruin his entire life. And Ken was still portrayed as the villain and as the one that was unreasonable. Absolutely insane behaviour. I can't even. So in today's video, I want to detail why I believe that Ken from the B movie was justified in becoming the villain and why he was truly the real victim. And I will also detail why Barry B. Benson was the true villain of the B movie. And hopefully by bringing light to this, we can hold Barry accountable for his actions and we can stop justifying his toxic and bully-like behaviour. Now, the first reason that I have that justifies why Ken became the villain is the fact that Ken was deadly allergic to bees, but Vanessa, his girlfriend, still brought Barry around him. Now, I don't have a bee allergy, however I can imagine that having one is very inconvenient and very scary at times, as this allergy is for something that is very commonly found, especially in the spring and summertime. For people with bee allergies, this can be mild or fatal. If stung, those with bee allergies can struggle to breathe or even die. So the fact that Ken was so against Barry being in his own house and in his personal life is completely fair enough and completely justified, as he probably feared for his own goddamn life. Like, Jesus, man. Come on, Vanessa. Now, fair enough, when Barry did break into their house and Vanessa caught him, she did throw him out, but she welcomed Barry back into the house knowing that Ken was allergic. Now, the way that Ken reacted when they noticed that Barry was in the house leads me to believe that this allergy is very severe, because you aren't going to react like that unless you're fearing for your own life. Like, oh my god, my poor guy. Even though bees are very unlikely to sting you unless they are provoked, like we see later on in the movie, Ken must have been absolutely terrified in his own home, which is so nasty. This, in my opinion, is psychological warfare and would have driven Ken absolutely crazy as he was fearing for his own life, which in my opinion gives him a great reason to become the villain, and I don't blame him for it. Now, at first, Barry and Vanessa's relationship seemed innocent enough, right? Because she was obviously freaked out that this bee could talk to her and she was just trying to understand what was going on, you know? However, this situation soon became very inappropriate. Barry began to become very sassy and began to overstep when it came to Vanessa and Ken's relationship. From him making comments slagging Ken's great skills with his chopsticks in order to make Vanessa laugh at Ken, to him borrowing Ken's razor even though Ken is allergic to bees, to Barry blatantly flirting with and having romantic dinners with Vanessa right in front of him. It's very clear that Barry very obviously didn't respect Ken or his relationship with Vanessa. It's as if Barry believed that being voiced by Jerry Seinfeld meant that he could just ruin Ken's life and steal his girlfriend with absolutely zero consequences. Now, after Vanessa breaks up with Ken, which we'll get to later on in the video, Barry states, and I quote, "I always thought that there was some kind of barrier between Ken and me, which just absolutely pisses me off. This little bastard absolutely disrespected my guy Ken, and then after ruining his life and stealing his girlfriend, makes a sarcastic little comment. Oh Barry, when I see you next, you're honestly getting scalped about."
Coming for you! Coming for you! We know what you're doing!
In a fair world, Vanessa and Barry would be punished for their weird relationship and their crimes. However, Ken is the only one that has to pay the ultimate price, as his life is completely turned upside down because of Barry, which again makes it so clear as to why Ken became the villain and why he was justified to do so. Now, because of this blatant disrespect that Ken has been facing from both Barry and Vanessa, Ken finally snaps, and no one can blame him for it. Now, this scene is why many point to Ken as the villain of this story. However, I ask you to hear me out before blindly defending this evil little bastard bee. Just imagine for a second that a bug's existence was threatening your life, which in Ken's case it was due to him being allergic to this bug, and if this said bug was trying to infiltrate your life, how would you feel? How would you actually feel? Would you be okay with it, or would you be absolutely pissed off like Ken was, right? Now, I want to make it very clear, I do not under any circumstances support violence against anyone or any creature. However, you can't just let a little goddamn bee disrespect you like that. Like, what did you expect Ken to do? Did you expect Ken just to be like, okay Barry, you can just have my life? No, of course he was gonna fight, and I don't blame him for it. He's not the villain because he decided to fight back against this goddamn bee. He was trying to steal his own life. It's so insane that people even try and have this conversation that Ken was the villain. Ken was never the villain. He's misunderstood. In fact, I think we all understand him, because there's no way that people are defending Barry after this. No one is defending that little bastard after this. Oh my god. Vanessa catches Ken fighting with Barry and decides to dump him for Barry. Ken is absolutely heartbroken and very obviously confused, because what else would you think in this situation, and decides to leave. Now, to me, this is one of the biggest moments in the whole movie that allows me to understand Ken's descent into becoming the villain and why it is completely justified. He was dumped for a bee. Imagine the person you love the most in the entire world choosing a bee over you. Just put yourself into Ken's shoes and you can truly understand why he became the villain. Now, one of the other reasons why I truly believe that Ken had every right to become the villain is because Vanessa has hinted that she has kind of participated in this behaviour before, which leads me to think that she's a bit crazy. And I think that Ken had every right to become the villain because he has just wasted his entire life with someone that's absolutely insane and really doesn't deserve him. Just hear me out, right? Because this bit's a bit more far-fetched, but just hear me out. Now, after Ken and Barry's iconic fight, Vanessa decides to stick up for Barry and to defend him, instead of sticking up for her boyfriend Ken, right, because she's absolutely insane. And she states, "Barry is just a little bee. He happens to be the nicest bee I've met in a long time." Now, first of all, what the hell is this? Like, what the hell is this movie? Like, this movie is insane, like, Jesus Christ. This woman is very obviously mentally insane and needs to be admitted to a psychiatric hospital right now, because, like, what? As well as this scene actually brings up so many questions. The main one being, how many bees has she had like a weird relationship with? Ken is very obviously disgusted and confused by this, right? Because what else would you think if someone said something like this to you? And asks her a question in a very similar lane to what I just asked. However, Ken's confusion to this suggests that he was blissfully unaware of the fact that she is number one crazy and number two a cheater who has affairs with bees.
Bees?
Because that's what that comment insinuates, is that she has had little romantic affairs with bees, or at least like has gotten really weirdly friendly with bees. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what's happening, but anyway, yeah, my guy had every right to become the villain and had a very lucky escape. Now, after being dumped by Vanessa, we don't really see Ken. You know, we're like stripped away of our icon until the end of the movie. In this scene, we hear Ken painfully scream that Barry, this goddamn bastard bee, is living his life. Now, not only is this incredibly heartbreaking, but it's a clear reason as to why Ken had every right to become the villain. This is due to the fact that he was 100% right to question Barry's motives. Barry's motives were not unknown to Ken. Ken seen right through that little innocent bee act that he had gone on. Do you guys not think it's crazy that as soon as Ken is out of the picture, Barry and Vanessa go public with their weird ass relationship. Like, come on now. Now, you may be thinking that they were never officially a couple. However, I would like to argue that this weird chemistry and uncomfortable tension that the two characters had throughout the movie almost suggests to me that this was Jerry Seinfeld's intention. Like, I think that that is the conclusion that he wanted us to come to, is that there was a weird relationship thing going on here. Because, like, why else was it written like that? Why else is there, like, weird tension between these two characters, Jerry Seinfeld? You need to answer these questions, because I'm confused. We're all confused. Now, apart from this, another clear sign that they were in, like, a weird relationship is the fact that they opened a business together. To me, this is a clear sign because you don't just open a business with some random ass bee that you just met. The whole thing's just really weird. I think Ken, as I said, had a very lucky escape. This bitch is absolutely insane. Opening businesses with bees, like having really weird relations with bees. Like, come on. Like, Ken, my guy, like, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. You could also argue that them opening a business is Barry's weird sick way of rubbing it in Ken's face that he won and that he stole Ken's life. Therefore, with the evidence presented, Ken was absolutely right and Barry is a bastard scumbag. It makes Ken's hatred for Barry 100% understandable. I don't personally believe that Ken was truly the villain. I really don't. I don't believe Barry was the main villain of the story, because the main villain of the story is obviously like the honey corporations and stuff. Like, I get that. But Barry was 100% a villain in this goddamn movie. Like, he was, right? The way he treated Ken, the way he disrespected him, absolute villain behaviour, if you ask me. And Barry knew that he could get away with this kind of behaviour because he knew that Vanessa seemed to have this weird thing for insects, which just makes me question her as well, to be honest. Like, she's low-key a villain as well. But she, to me, just seems like somebody that's very mentally insane, so I don't know if I feel comfortable calling her the villain, because she's insane. She's just a bit crazy. Barry was very calculated. Barry knew exactly what he was doing. That little bastard. Now, if you're still not convinced that Ken really wasn't the villain, just hear me out. Ken had his entire life stripped away from him due to his very rational fear of bees due to his allergy, as well as this, his annoyance at the disrespectful behaviour presented by Barry towards his relationship with Vanessa. And we all know that you can only push a person so far before they break. No one would be able to mentally handle the psychological torment that my guy Ken faced at the hands of this goddamn bastard bee, and therefore Ken had every right to become the villain. However, I think the main takeaway from this video is the fact that Ken is a bigger person than Amar, because I'd have just stomped on that little bastard.
Bees?